I think this is me, but
and do urge all those in the Tualatin Hills Park and Recreation District to support and promote this observance. Thank you. And our second proclamation. Whereas THPRD is committed to creating safe, welcoming, inclusive spaces that serve, invite, and belong to everyone. And
whereas THPRD rejects explicit and implicit acts of hate in all forms, including those against our Asian and Pacific Islander community members. And
Ashley, tell me when it's me because I can't tell.
It's you, Wendy.
Okay, thank you. Whereas today, nearly 74,000 people who live in Washington County are of Asian or Pacific Island descent, contributing to the social, economic, and cultural fabric of our community. And
whereas the Asian American and Pacific Islander community in Washington County is incredibly diverse, representing people from more than 20 unique countries of origin, including China, India, Japan, the Korean Peninsula, the Philippines, Vietnam, and more. And
whereas THPRD respects the heritage and cultural traditions of all people and recognizes the privilege and responsibility of serving our diverse community. And
whereas Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month is an occasion for honoring our shared humanity, celebrating cultural stories, and committing to accountability, advancing racial equity. And Wendy?
Thank you. Now, therefore, the Board of Directors of the Tualatin Hills Park and Recreation District does hereby declare the month of May 2021 as Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. And do urge all those in the Tualatin Hills Park and Recreation District to support and promote this observance.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Jessica, for preparing that for us, even though we didn't pull it off flawlessly tonight. Thank you all. Both very important recognitions for us to make. Next on the agenda, yep. Sorry, did I miss something? Nope, okay. Oh, I'm just hearing a little echo, that's all. Okay, so next on the agenda is our audience time. Secretary Heidi Edwards, would you please read onto the record the email that was sent?
Yes, I will, as soon as I apparently had closed it. So this is the meeting of all. Here we go. I'm pulling it up. I had it up. One moment. Okay. So public testimony for this evening comes from Bill Evans. Thank you, Bill, for your email testimony. Bill states, as a former employee of the Park District, I'm fortunate to have an insider's perspective on the great work THPRD's maintenance staff does to keep parks, trails, and facilities in great shape for the community to enjoy. Thank you. I'm writing in hopes that John can soon dispatch a crew to provide some much needed TLC at Barrows Park. A significant portion of the walking path extending from New Seasons to the play structures is pretty significantly chewed up and in need of resurfacing. The pathway is more than suitable for walking, but choppy and more difficult to navigate for countless children on blades, skates, scooters, and bikes to a lesser extent. The dog rarely speaks, but undoubtedly, she would tell you that her paws could benefit from a smoother surface too. When prioritizing future trail improvements, please consider upgrading this highly trafficked stretch of trail, which could be a great training ground for kids to gain confidence on their wheels of choice, were it not in its current state. Thanks for the consideration. A big hello to my former colleagues who may be listening. Miss you all and hope you're well. Regards, Bill Evans. Thank you, Bill, and I will have you say something, Doug, if you'd like to, or respond.
Sure. I mean, certainly we're on top of it. Staff has already been out to the site, and later this week we'll review its comparison with, of course, the multitude of trails and conditions, and of course, the capital replacement program. So certainly it's on the list. It's not new, we know that, but of course the district has a lot of trail surfaces, so we'll be able to manage. Certainly we'll provide a response to Bill, and we'll let the board know where the status is of this particular trail segment.
Thank you, Doug. Thank you, Bill, for sending in your comment. Our next agenda item, make sure I didn't skip anything. Oh, I was about to skip something. Here we go. Okay, our next agenda item is board time. So if anyone has any committee liaison or other updates that they would like to give, please, we'll still raise hands and then go around the table. Felicita.
Hi, everyone. I'm hoping that Doug can give us an update on legislative things. I do want to do a shout out to Aisha and to our lobbyists, Kylie and Doug. This has been a legislative session like no other. I'll leave it at that. And there's opportunities, right? And so we have been eager to participate and go after some of those opportunities. I have never talked about public bathrooms so much in my life. I'm really proud that we have advocated for that. And I think we have good news, but I think we have to wait maybe a little bit longer, but I'll let Doug talk about that. And then I just want to bring folks' attention to House Bill 2560, which would make all meetings accessible remotely through technological means and provide opportunity for members of the general public to remotely submit oral and written testimony. And I think that, I mean, what's been really neat, and instead of us all having to go to Salem one day and coordinate meetings, right, we've been able to hop on a call, disappear from work for 15 minutes and be able to do this work and represent our community and advocate for the things that matter to us. So we've had that privilege, and we want to give that privilege to our constituents as well, right? So I'm assuming this bill will likely pass, and it's not an overbearing new law. It's all within reason. So just wanted to make folks aware of that, because I think Clint and Jessica will definitely apply to their work. And then I also just want to share, so there's a Preschool for All Washington County task force that is being formed. The co-chairs are Olga Acuna at Hillsborough School District, former city councilor. The other co-chair is Bridget Cook, executive director at Adelante Mujeres. I've been invited to sit on that task force, mostly with my THPRD hat, I think exclusively with my THPRD hat. The meetings are during the day, which is going to be tricky for me for work, but I'm going to try to figure it out. If I can't, I'm going to encourage TIA to engage. They are trying to create a space that is primarily BIPOC, which I think is super important for this bill, and something Multnomah County did, which I think was fantastic. But overall, I hope we all engage in some level. So I'm talking with Doug and making sure that staff are on the same page, because I'm not going to do anything that staff wouldn't agree with. And then finally, I just want to share that I got the sweetest text from a friend at the during the Centro de Bienvenida, just how inclusive and thoughtful and empowering it was. And no surprise, they gave a big shout out to Lulu. And so just kudos to all the volunteers, all the staff that made that happen, that bring their language skills. And it's appreciated. It's making ripple effects. And thank you.
Great. I can comment now a little bit, and certainly Aisha has more detail with regard to the legislative side. And yes, it was active. And the full board knows this because the full board was heavily engaged. It was an exciting time period, and I think it was really refreshing to have the responsiveness with regard to our electeds who wanted to know what THPRD needed and was willing and able to find ways to support. And I think what you'll hear from Aisha is we're on the verge of success. Of course, we don't have anything finite, so we'll have to wait to really bless all these things. But Aisha, do you want to comment some?
Sure, I can. We did have, like Doug said, a complete whirlwind of a week last week where we were rushing from meeting to meeting virtually, and that was actually a much nicer experience than tearing across town in a car or something. Not that we would ever do that. But we did have the opportunity to speak with a large number of our delegates. And, at the end of the week, we weren't really sure where we stood. And Kylie and I were reflecting on it and saying, this time was definitely well spent because at a minimum, we had some FaceTime with our legislators and we had the opportunity to talk about the good work that we're doing at THPRD and how we think we can help going into the future. And so we did speak with a number of folks about our proposal for the permanent restroom installations. And we also had a chance to talk about the Fano Creek Trail crossing at Shoals Ferry Road. And so at the conclusion of the week, we had both provided our own proposal on the restrooms and then joined up with a bunch of other folks across Washington County for a larger request regarding restrooms. And we also submitted testimony for capital funding for the crossing. So it was a very busy week. And we heard yesterday, maybe the day before, that things are looking very positive for us in terms of garnering some or all of the funding that we requested. So we will happily share that information once it is confirmed, but we're feeling very excited about it. Thank you for the clapping hands.
Best update. Thank you. Heidi?
Thank you. Just a couple of quick updates. Sorry, I'm a little bit kerfuffled with my technology tonight. Update regarding the Nature and Trails Advisory Committee, and we did have a joint advisory committee meeting. Thank you to Holly, Cindy, and Janine for participating in that. They gave us an update regarding THPRD budget and structure changes. Cindy spoke to her work with grants, and Janine regarding the West Side Trail. It was great these were things that I was aware of, but that our advisory committee volunteers may not have been. So it was good to hear from them. And then the Nature and Trails Advisory Committee met after the joint advisory committee meeting. We had Hannah Dornhofer join us, and she spoke about the City Nature Challenge that took place between April 30th and May 3rd. I did not have a chance to participate, but it sounded like a wonderful opportunity to encourage anyone in the community and actually nationally to participate in this nature challenge, to take pictures of things living or deceased, and to post them online and share them with the community. So I think, Felicita, did you participate by chance, or did any of our board members participate?
I feel awful. I hope to hear how it went.
It's okay. Anyway, it sounded like a wonderful opportunity, and I want to thank Hannah for her coordination of that and the rest of the staff that helped lead that charge. We will be meeting again later this month. And a quick update regarding the Tualatin Hills Park Foundation. Last week, we had a small group of our trustees meet as a part of a strategic task force to discuss what we see going forward and to plan for how we want the foundation to look and feel and engage with the community and do fundraising. So I want to thank Eileen for all of her work putting that together. We had great discussion, and I think it was also helpful because we looked back at what the foundation has done over time, and things have changed quite a bit with the hiring of our executive director and other things that have changed within the organization. So we were able to sort of figure out and learn a little bit more about the foundation itself, but then envision what we want for the future. So we have some really good, exciting ideas. I'm not going to share them because nothing's solid and firm yet. We're meeting as a strategic task force again to firm some things up. And we also have a foundation board meeting next week on May 19th, where we will address some of this as well as interests related to the online website and fundraising and all things foundation. So really working hard to make sure that we can do our best to continue that work so that we can fund programs through the district. And I think that is it for me.
Thank you, Heidi. Wendy, do you have anything you'd like to update on today?
Yes, very briefly. Heidi touched on the high points, I think, for the joint meeting. And I would like to echo her comment that I really think the information presented to our committee members is very well received. They really appreciate hearing what's going on and what where they can help and what the future looks like. They really like this information and they feel very privileged to get it. So when staff takes the time to present this kind of information, it's well received, and almost every single committee member has told me that. So I just wanted to share that with you. I did also attend the joint meeting and also the Parks and Facilities meeting. Very briefly, they appreciated the presentation from Aisha on updates for the Conestoga Rec and Aquatics facility and also the facility reopening. In addition, we discussed the Eichler Bike Park project and it's moving forward, and I think the committee is pretty excited about that. And we also talked a little bit about the challenge grant and how they could maybe make better use of it next year, understanding how it does work and trying to get some things moving within the committee, issues that they're interested in, moving that a little sooner during the year. And finally, we also discussed the dog run support letter. We did receive a response back from the mayor. I think the committee was a little underwhelmed, but they plan on continuing work on supporting dog runs and dog parks in the district, and specified again that they very well may be looking at ones outside the city limits. So that's pretty much what I had this time. And aside, obviously, that we all got to go to the budget meeting. So, and we have more to come. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Yes, I feel like the last month has flown by. And for, last meeting when, Felicita and Heidi both had to step out for public testimony with our state legislature to now that we might have some good news coming. I love how it's tied into our visioning, right? The work that we, or the request that THPRD put in around bathrooms is something we've heard loud and clear from our constituents, and it's just made even more clear over the past year. And so I'm hopeful. I can't wait for some good news. And yeah, I'm very proud of all of the work because I know that it was an extra lift for everyone. And so thank you to everyone who took a piece of that and helped all together, right? Because I think this was a true team effort, and thank you for everyone that leaned into this process. Also, thank you, yes, budget. Thank you for mentioning that, Wendy. Our awesome budget committee meeting. How great to see just so much involvement and participation from the committee, and how much, those thoughtful questions were submitted, and the answers in advance. That was so helpful. So thank you to all the staff who helped come up with those responses as well, because I know that's additional work, but I think it helps just create that much more clarity into our budget in an already very transparent and accessible document, but just having that clarity was really helpful. So in addition to legislative outreach and all the things my colleagues have mentioned, there was a voters forum held just a week and a half ago, and we got to hear from future THPRD board members. So thank you to all involved in helping host that and put that on. It was great to see, what the incoming board candidates and our incumbent had to say. And so just really good things, positive things ahead for the district, right? I think that's all from me. All right. Let's see. Okay, no more hands. So we are good. So our next agenda item is the consent agenda. Is there a motion?
Yes, I have a motion and I'm winging it because I don't have the right piece of paper. So I move approval of the consent agenda for the May 12th board meeting.
I'll second.
Perfect. Thank you, Wendy. And please do. The motion is moved and seconded. So what I'm trying to do is, like, can we just say aye, right? Can I just say all approved and we say aye? Or do I have to go through this?
Yeah, actually, technically, we're supposed to do a voice vote, so a roll call vote. Yeah.
All right. Please take the roll, Jessica.
Heidi Edwards.
Yes.
Felicita Monteblanco.
Yes.
Wendy Kroger.
Yes.
Ashley Hartmeyer-Prick.
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you, Jessica.
Thank you.
All right. And our next agenda item is the general manager's report.
You bet. Aisha's going to start out.
Perfect.
Yes, good evening. We'll wait for this to load, and here we go. So I'm here tonight to speak with you along with Sabrina Taylor-Schmidt, who's going to cover the more summer sneak peek portion of the presentation, but I wanted to talk you through where we're at in our operations scheme. So on the next slide, I wanted to share with you the centers that we now have open. And the newest one added to this list is Somerset West Swim Center, which is one of our outdoor pools, and that opened just on Monday of this week. So the rest of these centers have largely been in operation, several of them since the original reopening at the end of last summer, and with some add-ons as time went on, and then some closures, but reopenings. So we are now operating a pretty robust program. And so on the next slide, I'll talk with you about each one, kind of what the mix of activities are. So apologies to Wendy, because this is a presentation she has heard before, but for the rest of you, we wanted to make sure you were aware of what all we had on offer. So down at Conestoga, we've been running our out of school time program since the fall, and we are looking forward to some preschool graduations coming up really soon here. Our drop-in programs include fitness classes, our weight room and cardio room. We also have some registration classes that are available for folks. And over on the aquatic side, we've been able to offer our lap swim and some water fitness. And then we've also launched our splash program, which is a recreational swim team program. And coming up this summer, we will, of course, return to our summer camp model. So next slide, please. Over at Cedar Hills, we are also running an out of school time program and preschool. So again, some little graduation events, largely virtual, that will be happening there. We're also running some classes, and we have some fitness activities as well as our drop-in activities and upcoming summer camp. So on the screen, you see a little snapshot. Don't expect you to be able to read it, but a little bit of information about the different camps by ages and by weeks that we are offering over at Cedar Hills. Like last year, many of our camp options are going to be held outside with limited inside activities. Next slide, please. At our aquatic center, we are continuing to offer lap swim and our water fitness classes, both shallow and deep. We do have all of our aquatic clubs that are rotating in and out of the facility using it, and also hosting some swim meets. We had one on the day of registration back on the 1st, and it was a little bit smaller, as you would expect from previous offerings there, but it was great to see the excitement on the complex when we had not only registration, Centro, and our tournaments, volleyball tournament down at our athletic center, but also the swim meet. So we are continuing to offer that as well as private rentals at the facility. On our next slide, I will talk to you about what we are offering at the athletic center. And I've mentioned to you before that we tried something a little different, which was a all-weather sort of youth sports class program, which was our polar bear series that started on the day of sideways rain. But we did get kiddos through that, and we did kick off our sports leagues, as well as hosting Beaverton School District activities on our sites again. We're doing our drop-in sports. Our summer camps are out and people have signed up for those. We have sports in nature and other sports specific camps, and those are all happening on the HMT complex and Mountain View Champions. We're also kicking off that affiliate review process that we've talked to you about previously, and did let all of our folks know who had been selected, and we had a great variety of sports represented, as well as both people currently affiliated with our program and those that are not. And so we do anticipate meeting with them late this month or early June for that kickoff meeting. And we do continue to have activity reservations throughout the center, doing things like the walking track and the weight activities. Next slide, please. Here is a great photo that I love. It's the best day of the year, the day that the air structures come down. And so this was the start of it. We always take down the eastern air structure first so that we can then get to the western one. But this is the day that we roll up those green air structures so that we can provide these outdoor beautiful courts for people to reserve. So we do have reservations both for tennis and for pickleball. We are running private lessons currently, and we are offering summer camps again. Those were very popular summer camps for us last year, and we're seeing very good utilization of them this year as well. So next slide, please. Just a note that we are planning to open up our Garden Home Rec Center for limited use this summer, and that is primarily to support some outdoor summer camps that are happening there. And we are also planning on a relaunch of our Thrive After School program at the center this fall. We don't anticipate opening up the center more broadly until next year, but that could change, because some of the good news that I wanted to also share with you is that we had some news from our governor yesterday, you may be aware, that we are looking at the possibility of many of our restrictions being rolled back later this summer. So we are taking an additional look at our revised operating plans to see whether there are additions to our programs in our open centers now, or what that schedule for reopening currently closed facilities might be. So we need to, take our financial picture into account and make sure that we have the staffing available to support all these facilities. But it was a boost of good news that we can take another look at what we might be able to bring online. So at a minimum, with capacity changes occurring last week that allow us to bring more folks in, we are able to raise the capacities in some of our current buildings so that we can reduce some wait lists by adding more folks to classes and camps. And we can also provide more drop-in activity spaces for folks. So that was great news for us. We're looking forward to the future on what might happen. But I believe now I'd like to turn it over to Sabrina, who can talk with you a little bit about what we expect the summer to bring.
Good
Sabrina.
evening. Good evening, everyone. On your screen, you'll see a side-by-side 2019 and 2021 of our registration at 8:45 in the morning on Monday. We're comparing 8:45 on Monday because that is 15 minutes into out of district. So it was just a snapshot of time. And we chose to compare 2019 because 2020 we didn't do a lot. So it was a non-traditional summer. I also want to note that we are comparing open facilities. So it's same. The centers that are not open are not part of this comparison. So you can see that in 2019, we had the $1,200,000, and 2020, we're at 814,000. That felt really, really pretty good. There's also a $46,000 worth of YMCA grants that's not captured in this money. So it's really wonderful. And especially when you look at how many classes are offered or the max participation, it's pretty much it's half of what we were able to do to have that number. So we're seeing a really strong registration in our programs and enthusiasm towards our programs. Next slide, please. Our popular programs, were a lot of our really fun camps that we've seen before and some new ones. Birds of a Feather, Buggymon were some of the ones that filled up with our nature programs. With Cedar Hills and our other rec centers, we saw soccer and basketball, as well as recess games. Those camps are mostly half-day camps, and we saw a lot of popularity focusing on enrichment activities. Garden Home specialty camps are full. One of the first ones to fill there was, of course, the Hogwarts camp, a very fun camp at Garden Home. Aquatic swim lessons at both, all of our facilities that have aquatics are just tremendously popular right now. There's a lot of enthusiasm about getting students back in water. So we're really excited to offer that this summer. Next slide, please. So I checked when I was sending in this PowerPoint, and I wanted to share with you the updated number. So on the 10th, it was 942,000, and that does not include the 46,000 from the YMCA grant. And then I have it up in front of me. We are now at $968,000. So we're doing really well. There's still people are continuing to register every day. That number is changing. And we're just a lot of excitement from the customers to get back into our programs and the people we serve. So it's really great. And that is all I had, but we're open for questions now. And I already see a hand, but I can't tell who it's for.
Felicita.
This is all so exciting. Oh my goodness. And I'm so, I mean, as someone who went to summer camp, as someone who had their first job at summer camp, like I'm so excited for our kiddos, for the staff, for all of our amazing leaders, and just all the kudos for pivoting, for being creative, for changing overnight, and just, my goodness, this is, I hope many of you saw the article from Vice that talked about how amazing the parks across the country have been during this pandemic. If not, I will send it to you. But a couple questions. One, I'm curious, are rentals happening again? I'm mostly curious about the nature park because it's such an awesome space. I'm curious if the library is open at Garden Home. And then I'm also curious, you kind of touched upon this, Sabrina. We've had a year of kids not learning how to swim. And I can't help but be a little nervous about that. And so how has that been incorporated, and how are we thinking about that in terms of knowing that like the need for like level 1 has like doubled, right? I mean, in a way, right? When we didn't have it for a year. I'm curious your thoughts.
I think I'll have Sabrina take that third question about the swimming, but I will answer the first two questions. For rentals, I think, are you referring to the rental of our building at Cooper Mountain?
I was thinking about Tualatin Hills Nature Park.
Okay.
Just because I know I've used that space personally and professionally so many times, and it's so wonderful. And I'm so excited to hear the nature center's open again. I'm just curious if we're able to offer rentals again.
I don't believe we are doing that. And I was also thinking of the picnic shelters that we traditionally rent out. And we're working on a plan to provide the support to open those picnic shelters for rentals again, but we're not yet there. Just with
no
capacity
pressure to
limits.
Do so.
No pressure. Okay. But that is also something that we have to manage when we're talking about a building like the Nature Center, the Beaver Den. We do have to look at building capacity and what we're offering. And so with this change with capacities and our restrictions lifting, we have to look at our programming side first. So that's our priority. And then we will look at whether we can return to the rental concept.
That makes perfect sense. Thank you.
Sure. And then with regard to the library, so Garden Home is my community rec center, and that is my community library. So I can say that it's open for operation, but not to go in and browse. So we do have library to go hours where we're able to go in and pick up holds and grab the interesting things that they put out on the rack. And I think it was last week I was able to go in there, and they actually had some little THPRD bags that were PE at home bags. So they encouraged me to take one, and so I am now the proud owner of a brand new jump rope. So in addition to the books for all of my child's enrichment, I now get a THPRD jump rope. So they're open for that, and they're great. They're such a wonderful partner to have within our center. So I will turn it over to Sabrina for the swimming question.
Well, we're very excited to start offer swim lessons. By far, we offer those introduction swim lessons. And with current guidelines, we have to maintain 6 feet between the instructor and the child. So we are going to need to have parents in the water, and that's going to be very exciting. So that'll be the safety. We are planning for a lot of assessment, knowing kids are going to either go backwards in skill or be new to skill. And we're working on our training for our instructors so they know how to teach a variety of that. And by far the demand is in that level 1-2 swim program. So those, as we have more instructors come on board and we can train them, and as guidance changes and we can maybe do a little bit more in our pools than we currently are planning on, we'll expand those programs. But safety will be our #1 priority, as well as the quality of the program. We're really excited. We're planning on doing some pilot training programs for these group classes right before summer. And so the instructors are ready to teach the parents as well as the students, because that'll be a little different.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Sabrina. Heidi?
Thank you. Oh my gosh, I was smiling so big and nodding my head and so happy about all of this. And I think one of my favorite things about THPRD is what we do in our programming and summer camps. I was just thinking, I just picked my oldest up from college and wish he was young again so he could be doing this stuff this summer. And I'm just thrilled looking at the programming. Conestoga is sort of my home base, and I just love like the Truckers, Adventurers, the Voyagers, all of those new fun camps that we're offering. I did have a question regarding camp capacity, summer camp capacity at this point in time. Do you have a general sense of where, you know, we could maybe be doing more in promoting, you know, either a certain rec center or certain camps, or are some of them full? Maybe that's a Sabrina or an Aisha question.
I'm happy to answer that question. Many of our half-day camps we're seeing the highest interest in. So right now what staff is doing is they're kind of adjusting classes. So maybe if a camp wasn't in full and we can move and shift staff so we can expand on those wait lists for any of the popular programs. That is something the staff does any year, every year. We're just doing the same thing this year. Right now, we still, even if we go down to low, have some risk guidance, sector guidance. So our pod size needs to stay no bigger than 30 kids in those. But if we come out of risk sector guidance, that may change. What may help us is how many people we can have on our fields or within our facilities. The camps that that we would say that we need a little nudge and a little support are the all-day camps. And I think people are just working differently. Those used to be our most popular camps, you know, the 7:30 to 6 or the 9 to 5. And what we've seen is people are looking for that half-day enrichment, which is why we expanded on that programming based off of last summer, because that's what we saw last summer as well. People weren't looking for the childcare that they were, but we still wanted to make sure we offered it this year because there are families that are going to still need that all day. So it's a spectrum of offerings, but with it heavier on the half day.
Well, thank you for that update too. And I think as you know, families and folks are going back to work, I think those all-day camps are going to be a gift for the families in our community. And I'm really pleased to hear that you're opening when we have a class or a day camp that fills up, half-day camp, that we're looking at the wait list, trying to open another one if we possibly can, shifting staff around. It's a great strategy. So thank you, Sabrina, for all of that.
And Heidi, I would add that there is an opportunity for your son to still participate in our camp programs. We are actively recruiting for camp leaders. So if he wants to have that opportunity to go back to camp, we are definitely hiring, and I would encourage him to check out our webpage for current openings.
Yes, thank you. Something for us to share with all of those high school and college age youth that are looking for some experience this summer. Thanks, Sabrina.
Good plug, Sabrina. Thank you.
Yeah, that was so seamless and smooth. Wendy, I don't know if you can raise your hand on the iPad, so I just want to make sure you have a chance to ask any questions that you may have.
Thank you. No, I just, my heart sings when I hear about the swim program and that we can get the kiddos back in, you know, to the enrichment programs. It's been, for all of us, been a very tough year, 18 months. And so I'm just really tickled, and I'm very happy to hear about this. And congratulations, Aisha and Sabrina and your staff. You've just done a great job.
Awesome. I just had one question. Were all of the YMCA spots like reserved? Like, are we filling that up still, or they've all been claimed?
We did it. I mean, we did that. I say we, but Holly's team and Lulu did a phenomenal amount of work in a very short period of time. And we're currently registering them. That we have their spots saved. We know which camps they want. And now we're going through the process. Lori Leach and her team is working on getting everyone placed into those camps, and then we'll be contacting them. So it's super exciting. It's a phenomenal opportunity. And it happened. I mean, everything, as you mentioned earlier, has been kind of like, hurry up and run, when there's an opportunity, and this is one of those, and we're really glad to be able to offer that to the community.
That's great. And what's the age limit on Hogwarts camp? I definitely was drinking out of a Hogwarts mug this morning. Thank you for this wonderful update. And it is really wonderful to see, right, how close we're getting back to pre-COVID numbers, right? I mean, what an encouraging set of registration. I know it's a very personal choice, but please go get vaccinated. I got vaccine number 2 a week ago, so let's get over that 70% so we can, we can get back to more of these things that bring us all joy. So thank you. Any final comments, Aisha or Sabrina?
Just thank you very much for your support.
Thank you. Yeah. Wonderful. All right. Next up, we have Christine.
You bet. Internal equity work.
Hi, I'm Christine Hoffman, your HR director, and I am here today with Holly Thompson, Lulu Ballesteros, and Liana Harden to continue the conversation that we've been having about the internal equity work being done at the district. So first, I'm happy to quickly share that on May 4th, staff participated in part 1 of a 3-part training series that's being led by Emily Drew, faculty at Willamette University. This first session focused on the why, that basic question of why equity leading with race is so important. And feedback that we've received so far has been really, really encouraging. So 2 additional sessions building on that learning are planned for this week and next week for supervisors and for the district's leadership team. And you will see more information in the next management report. But this evening, we're going to share the work that's happening around affinity groups, which you may remember was one of the recommendations from the 2019 DEIA assessment, and also what is coming from the district's Welcoming and Inclusive Committee that we call WIC internally. So with that, I will step back and introduce Lulu Ballesteros, our Cultural Inclusion Specialist.
Hello, everyone. We wanted to share with you all an important piece that THPRD is working on, the creation of affinity groups. To provide a little bit more feedback or background, THPRD participated in the Intertwine Alliance Change Agent cohort, where Liana and myself were invited to participate in the 2020-2021 group. This year-long program brought together many organizations varying from government agencies as ourselves, nonprofits, businesses, and the objective is to create a group that supports the equity path or journey that each of us were in. Since it's a peer learning cohort model, we were asked to select a specific project that we wanted to work on during our time together. And as was just mentioned, one of the main things that came out of the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Access Assessment, a key takeaway was that we needed to increase communication between staff and leadership, as well as to create employee resource groups and or affinity groups. So basically, the purpose of affinity groups is to create spaces that provide employees with opportunities for networking, learning, solidarity, sharing. So there's much more to come, and we're working to get those affinity groups rolling by the end of summer 2021. And with this, I pass it on to Liana.
Oh, I think Holly. Is Holly present?
Yep, I got this one.
Hi, Holly. Go ahead.
Hi. So I'm going to chat for just a couple of minutes. Good evening, y'all, about the Welcoming and Inclusive Committee, the WIC Committee. So this is the district's internal equity team, employee-led. It was, as Christine said, a recommendation in our 2019 DEIA assessment. And as we've talked to the board in the past, we are constantly referring back to that document and making sure that we're moving the ball forward and following through on the great work that Lily and Cy helped us with and that our employees participated in and gave their recommendations. Christine and I are the management team sponsors. We have 2 co-chairs for the WIC committee. It's led by Liana Hardin and by Jaspreet Shahal, who is on a much deserved couple of days off, which is why she's not with us tonight. And I also wanted to give Jaspreet a shout out. She was also a key contributor on the YMCA grant. That was a lot of work. So I just want to give her that recognition as well. So Liana and Jaspreet are doing a great job leading this team. It was also, its roots began to form when we created the employee support team during the beginning of the pandemic, when we wanted to have an employee resource group to help both our recently separated employees, but our employees that were dealing with a lot of change. So the WIC sort of organically began to come about out of the pandemic, which was sort of interesting. The purpose of the WIC is to provide employee-led leadership and innovation to support our DEIA values, still working hand in hand with management. So Christine and I meet regularly with Jaspreet, Liana. We help set direction and the work plan for the WIC, but the WIC has all the domain of their recommendations. And in big charge of what they are asked to do is to help us prioritize our internal equity work. We really want it to be employee-led in terms of input about where we begin and where we start. The WIC is made up of folks throughout the district. We wanted to make sure that all of our divisions were recognized and that there was great participation among staff. They began meeting in the fall of 2020. It has 12 members, including the 2 co-chairs, and again, really reflective of our full organization. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Liana.
Hi, everyone. I am going to talk about actually, Jessica, you can move us to the next slide. Thank you so much. I'm going to talk about the focus and direction for the WIC over 2021. So what are those areas and projects we've been working on? So the first one we have is working on the DEIA definition and terms. So the intent here was and is to lay a foundation for the group to better clarify what our terms are as we do this work within the WIC, but also ultimately as a district. For example, being really clear about what we mean when we say equity, access, or justice. We believe this will help us build a shared language. Next thing we've been working on is the diversity and inclusion vision statement. I'm really excited about this, and I'm going to share more in just a minute. But moving on this list, we also are supporting an effort of these staff equity grants. And what this is THPRD will be offering staff the opportunity to apply for seed funds that will fund creative and innovative ideas for community projects that further district values and racial equity, really prioritize racial equity. So we're excited to support management team on this program. The WIC will be helping with reviewing the application packets and process, helping promote the grants, and helping with the grant selection process. And then last on this list, we have just general input on district-wide equity work. So some examples of this, the committee will likely be reviewing upcoming policies like maybe the language access policy, as well as the upcoming land acknowledgement work that we have coming up and more. All right, you can move us to the next slide, Jessica. Thank you. Yeah, so as I mentioned, I wanted to come back to this diversity and inclusion vision statement that we're working on. Management saw the need to craft a new statement, and the WIC has taken on this task as an opportunity to draft a statement that is both a sincere recognition of where we currently are, as well as an inspirational vision of how and where we want to go as a district. So we started this process by examining some characteristics of white supremacy, which show up in so much of what organizations do, including diversity and inclusion statements. So we've been asking ourselves and each other, are we recognizing those characteristics and when they show up? And We've also been spending some time examining the differences between non-racist and anti-racist lenses and expression, and whether that difference is visible and apparent in the language as we draft this new statement. So stay tuned, because we will be taking that draft to the management team for review and input this summer. Then we'll be coming to the board in August to get your review, input, and approval. So we're really looking forward to that. And I think that's it. So thank you so much for listening. And of course, we're always happy to answer any questions that might come up for you all.
Thank you. Let me see. Felicita.
Well, my heart is soaring, if you can't tell. I'm so excited. I'm so grateful. I know that this has come from so many leaders within the organization, so many people having tough conversations, growing as individuals and as leaders. I mean, the fact that you have used the term white supremacy and justice within a THPRD board meeting, and we're learning to understand those words and understand Park's role in addressing these issues, maybe the most exciting thing I've heard in a long time. So thank you. I'm really excited about Affinity Groups. As a woman of color, you know, those spaces with regards to folks' identity are really, really important. So really glad THPRD is doing that. And then, I'm so glad you mentioned Emily Drew, because she is fabulous. And I did a training with her forever ago, and oh my gosh, I looked her up real fast. I was like, oh, I know her. She's great. Awesome hire. And then I would just love to kind of ping, you know, we as a board, we certainly still have work to do. We have 2 new board members joining us. You know, let's try to make sure we have a work session for our growth this year, as we continue to get better, as we, you know, work to be stronger allies, as we work to address our own biases that come in every day when we make decision making, because I don't want anyone to ever think that we're exempt from that work, and that we know all. We do not. We have growth to do too. So thank you, Liana and Christine and Holly and Lulu, for all this work. And I also know it takes an emotional toll too. So I appreciate the work that you're doing.
Thanks, Felicita. Any other questions or comments from my colleagues? Yeah. Okay, go ahead, Heidi.
Just echoing everything that Felicita had to say, and also recognizing that it's difficult work to do, and it can be emotional. It can be draining, and for a lot of folks who identify as BIPOC or in spaces and places that are marginalized, even more so. So just really recognizing the work of the staff who is doing this, and not only internally for the organization itself, but how this really sends a message to our community that we have every intention to make sure that they are part of every activity, every opportunity that we offer. So just kudos and thank you for the time, dedication, and hard work.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you all for your support.
Yeah, thank you all for driving this work. You know, when we had our training with Lillian, it was really meaningful for me. I really appreciated, Holly, when you said y'all. I note all of the, like I hear in my meetings at work all of the time when people say guys, right? And so those little shifts that we make that can make such an impact, and to see this be an ongoing thing, right? And hearing that the training with Emily Drew is on, you know, it's a series, and I think that's good, because it's not a one and done. And you know, as an individual, I'm doing that myself, right? I have to continue to learn and grow from it. And so I would echo Felicita's request that the board have, you know, whatever the appropriate kind of check-in at a work session on those equity trainings and values and goals, right? And making sure that as a board, we are helping to set that direction and that tone, and that we are living that value that we put out there. So thank you for that. This is all such great work, and I know how important those affinity groups are for people to feel that sense of belonging And so thank you for helping getting that going so that people have that space at work too, right? That is theirs. So that's really wonderful. Wendy, I wanted to see if there's anything you want to chime in on here.
Thank you. No, I just echo my fellow board members in terms of support for this and the fact that staff has done such an incredible job both for the district and for us. So I thank you for that.
Wonderful, thank you. And sorry, I'm not trying to put anyone on the spot. I'm not seeing hands as easily today, so I just want to make sure I give everyone a chance. So thank you, Lulu, Holly, Christine, and Liana for that great work. We have one more topic, I believe.
You bet. We've got the equity-based recruitment update, and Kristen Smith is going to start that out.
Hi, thank you, and good evening. Thank you for inviting us to talk with you tonight about our recent recruitment and selection guide for hiring part-time employees. With me tonight is Karen Monday, Program Coordinator at the Nature Center, and Carlene Lawson, Human Resources Business Partner. I'm Kristen Smith, Interpretive Program Supervisor, and we're excited to share with you how the recruitment and selection guide came to be. We're going to talk about what it consists of and how the rollout of the new processes have gone so far. So with that, let's get started. About a year ago, Christine Hoffman gathered a cross-departmental team of staff to review our current hiring practices and incorporate new ways of approaching hiring to ensure we were including our district-wide values of inclusion and equity. The team was tasked with creating a consistent hiring process that met a variety of goals. First, we wanted to remove barriers for candidates of all backgrounds and identities so they could apply and compete for positions equitably. We also wanted to improve communication with candidates so we're transparent and clear with them and where they stand every step of the way from start to finish. We also wanted to ensure greater compliance, both legally and in line with human resources best practices. And we wanted to provide individual departments and hiring officials greater autonomy in the hiring process. So our recruitment steps can proceed even more efficiently. And then lastly, our goal was to improve the marketing and advertising of positions and postings to reach a wider, more diverse audience. So in the next slide, we'll share how we did all this. So starting last spring, really, it was probably almost exactly a year ago with the recruitment and hiring of our summer 2020 staff. We gathered a team of about 12 different staff members who met weekly for more than 6 months. And in those meetings, we reviewed, captured, reflected, and adjusted our hiring steps to meet the stated goals that we had for this project. We clarified best practices and frequently asked questions and investigated ways to make the hiring process unbiased and more inclusive. As part of this, 4 of our full-time staff attended Oregon State University's 16-hour search advocate workshop, which is an incredible workshop, and I recommend anyone, if you have an opportunity to attend. Special thanks to Christine for setting us up with that and allowing our staff to attend. But the Search Advocate workshop provided us an opportunity to learn about the ways to promote equity, validity, and diversity in our THPRD recruitments. And as a result of these efforts, we created the recruitment and selection guide. And our next slide, before we dive into the details of the guide, we'd like to take just a few minutes to share our appreciation and sincere kudos to the numerous staff, both current and previous, that contributed to this project. Through their dedication, their patience, their endless questioning, and their continued perseverance, the guide and supplemental trainings were created. Specifically, I'd like to acknowledge Carlene and Karen, who are on this call today, who really made the guide materialize and come together. So Karen, Carlene, and I at one point were meeting twice a week for several months to put together all the details of the guide as well as all the training workshops. In addition, I'd like to thank Brenda Peterson, Brian Powers, Christine Hoffman, Cynthia Guajardo, Denise Thomas, Emily Durant, John Wangan, Kevin Salagi, and Terry Cannon. Again, without all of their help, none of this would have been possible. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Karen Monday to talk us through the specifics of the new recruitment and selection guide for hiring part-time employees.
Great. So for the first time ever, we were able to create a step-by-step guide that contained many, if not all of the steps, considerations, and requirements for hiring into one single place. It's huge. The guide is about 80 pages long and functions as a usable how-to guide to equitable hiring practices. So the guide includes a checklist for hiring part-time staff so that all the steps can be completed in order, a timeline so that they can be completed in enough time for all departments to do all their responsibilities before an employee's first day, and a pay equity analysis calculator to ensure we're paying employees consistently district-wide and in accordance with the Oregon Equal Pay Act. So all of these tools and more, including how-to videos, templates, resources, are all accessible to all staff on Inside THPRD. So next slide. So one of the really great features about this guide is the key to using the guide. So the key points out and color codes a variety of tips, tools, and techniques that staff are encouraged to use throughout the guide to ensure accurate, unbiased, and inclusive recruitment processes. So staff are provided with helpful tips that will aid in the completion of the recruitment steps, as well as answers to frequently asked questions that may come up throughout the hiring process. And we also highlighted in the bright yellow the required steps that are needed throughout the process for compliance. And then in green are all of the inclusive recruitment and selection highlights. Just how the process can be made more inclusive. And this could entail rewriting job postings to contain ungendered or unbiased language, or reconsidering screening techniques to discern different skills and experiences. So next slide. So the guide's not meant to be read through straight through from cover to cover. It contains a 2-page table of contents that really outlines each section by subject area. So if staff are just looking to a refresher on how to do one thing in particular, they can go to that specific section without needing to read through the entire guide. And then each section contains screenshots for those specific steps in NeoGov that need to be completed to reinforce what they're about to do is accurate. So as detailed or as overview as it needs. So next slide. One of our favorite additions to the guide, thanks in part to our graphics designer, Henry Chan, is our 2-page hiring checklist. And this was designed for staff to print out and have nearby as a reference as they go through the hiring and recruitment process. And it highlights all the specific steps in the recruitment process and highlights those that are required in bold. So it's the kind of go-to what you have printed and easily accessible as you go through. And then lastly, one of the most valuable recruitment tools developed is the Pay Equity Analyst Calculator, which I'll turn over to Carlene Lawson to describe, as she was the one who first brought it to our team.
Thank you, Karen. So the Pay Equity Analysis Calculator was developed to be a tool to support hiring officials in making offers to candidates in a consistent manner district-wide. It also helps to eliminate a number of biases that may come into play for hiring officials when determining pay, and this also further aligns pay rates with the Oregon Equal Pay Act. The tool, which is really awesome, computes a hiring range based on minimum qualifications and a combination of the candidate's education and experience, both directly and progressively related. So in the next slide, I'll share a little bit about staff training and workshops. Staff introduced the guide to staff in a couple of different ways. The first was we leaked a few draft copies to current hiring officials and liaisons for them to work through while we finalized the guide and trainings. And then based on their feedback, we updated the guide and incorporated many of their questions into the trainings developed for all staff. Once the guide was finalized, we held a required training for all hiring officials and department liaisons to roll out the guide, share tools, and present additional hiring resources. Human resources staff then offered 3 additional optional trainings based on key recruitment processes. These included an in-depth workshop on how to create job postings and supplemental questions, how to use the pay equity analysis calculator, and how to create an inclusive recruitment and hiring process. These interactive workshops created an opportunity for hiring officials to learn more about barriers that we may be unintentionally creating in our selection process by using gendered language in our job posting, by not considering alternative paths to entry or lived experiences, and even how our own implicit bias may impact. In total, more than 45 staff members attended these optional trainings. So in the next slide, I'll share some feedback provided by staff. Overall, the guide and training was well received, which is great. And a majority of participants that have used the guide stated that they agreed or strongly agreed that the guide increased their understanding of inclusive, anti-racist hiring practices. One staff member commented specifically that they were very glad to have a helpful tool to aid them in these areas. Furthermore, more than 82% of participants agreed or strongly agreed that the workshops were helpful. Staff stated that the workshops provided a great way to learn these new processes, and putting the tools to use during the trainings was most helpful. And we were also encouraged to offer additional workshops annually. Finally, and the next slide, I'll share what our next steps are. So looking ahead, the Human Resources Department plans to offer additional and repeated trainings for all hiring officials and to hold office hours to provide an opportunity for staff to ask their specific recruitment questions, and also to share some new NeoGov features. In addition, because NeoGov is regularly making system upgrades and the ways to be inclusive is ever growing, we plan to update the guide at least twice a year so staff have the most up-to-date hiring or information when recruiting and selecting staff. HR will also continue to partner with hiring officials to monitor candidate demographics to ensure we are not disproportionately impacting different groups of candidates. And lastly, hiring officials and HR will continue to work closely with the communications department to promote and advertise our current job postings through a variety of mediums. I'm sure you've likely noticed an increase in social media presence, banners, radio ads, and television spot advertising for our summer hiring efforts. And a huge thank you to the communications department for prioritizing and supporting these efforts. Their work has resulted in a doubling of summer applications in recent weeks, and we're still not done. A summer job fair is coming up on May 19th to continue to promote our positions. So again, Holly, a big thank you to you and your team. Your work is very much appreciated. And with that, I'd like to open it up to any comments or questions. Thank you.
Heidi.
Well, good work, K-Team, the Kristen, Karen, and Carlene team. This is amazing and wonderful. I know it takes a lot of work, and I'm very appreciative working with part-time employees through my own professional work, and contingent labor often takes sort of a back seat to hiring and retention. So I'm really happy to see that we're doing this work. Couple of questions I had. Do we see this helping us to also inform our hiring of permanent full-time employees, or are we already doing some of this practice as well on that end? And then also, I would suggest, and maybe this is part of the plan moving forward, this is a huge feat here, but how it's not only about hiring, but the retention of our employees, and what does that mean long-term for our supervisors and folks that are supporting part-time employees to become full-time or to, pursue their their goals. So I guess I would just ask from the full-time permanent perspective if some of this is already in play and any talks about retention.
Yeah, absolutely. So these are all things that we've already been doing for a few years now with our regular status position, so full-time benefited. And so now we've noticed that it's worked and it's helped. And so we're, making sure that we're pushing it down so that we are consistent across the district with all of our recruitment practices. And then in terms of retention, we always want to make sure that we're doing our best to make sure that people feel welcome and included at the Park District. And so that's something that's always at the forefront. But with the WIC program, that's also another resource that will provide staff with an opportunity to feel included.
That's great. Yeah, and also just quickly, I don't know if it's, I would love a copy. I know, I don't know if it's like a printed document or just online, but I would love to see, I love how you have this color coded, what's absolutely necessary. Here are recommendations for XYZ. I serve on a number of hiring committees, and we're working really hard in my own professional life to make sure that we have these equitable hiring practices. And I think institutions can learn from one another. And I'm just really excited to know that this work is being done. So if there's an opportunity for us to have that shared to the board members, it'd be awesome, only as a reference point for me. So thank you.
We'd love to share it.
Awesome.
Felicita?
This is great and so exciting, and I feel like y'all should go on tour and talk about this work because it's great. And this is not my expertise, so super thankful Heidi's here. I really appreciate there's a commitment to continue improvement that's really critical. I wanted to highlight the recruitment fair, which I think ties very nicely with these values, and just the outreach and inclusion and intentionality that I'm seeing is so exciting. Like, the board has the privilege of setting values, and to see, today is just an amazing highlight of what it means to lead with a commitment to racial equity in multiple departments and in multiple ways. And I think about over the last 6 years, especially, like just how diverse the board is becoming. And that's in every definition: gender, race, income, age. And I do believe that is a testament to what's happening outside of THPRD, but also inside of THPRD, that it is welcoming, that it is kind and thoughtful, that it wants to do the hard work. And I'm just so excited. I can't stand it. Thank you so much.
Wendy, do you have anything you'd like to share?
No, other than that, I continue to be amazed and so heartened by the quality of our staff and the work they do, not only just following a process, but creating. So again, kudos. Thank you.
Yes, I agree. No questions. This is just wonderful. Or I guess maybe one question. So it sounds like you've done some piloting with it. Is this now like implemented, right? So for any of the hiring that's going on, they're using this process? It's just wonderful. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for this really good work. And to anyone who's watching, look out for that job fair, right? As we've been hearing all night, we've got summer camps. We need people to come help staff. So just wonderful. Yeah, it's similar to what we shared for this section before, right? And just echoing Felicita, it's all just such a great example of in the space that we are able to affect when we affect change, like that adds up and that makes something impactful and significant. So thank you all for that work. Heidi.
Yeah, just one last question. I just wanted to recognize that, we talk a lot about our patrons and our community and how to engage them in our services and opportunities. But I love that we're recognizing, and this was part of what we set forth a while ago, is, to really honor, respect, and support our employees. And whether that's in the hiring process, the training process, retention, knowing that they too are a part of this community, and we want to really help employees grow to be the best they can be and who they want to be within the organization and personally. Just again, great work. And I hope that all of the staff, not just our administration, but all of the staff are feeling supported through this process and recognizing that the board is committed to this work, because we are.
Thank you, Heidi. Appreciate that support.
And Heidi, that's actually something that we share regularly with the staff and the hiring officials who are working on that work, and is so deeply appreciated. So thank you. Sorry to jump in there.
No apologies needed, Christine. Thank you so much. Doug, is there any other items for tonight's agenda that I've missed?
No, we are there.
Okay. Well, thank you to everyone. I know it takes a lot of preparation to put together your presentations, in addition to all of the work that you're just doing to make these things come to life. So thank you so much for spending time with us this evening. I hope everyone can go maybe enjoy a walk before the sun sets. It's beautiful outside. And thank you just for being with us this evening. So we are adjourned until next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.